Hey there folks, Wrel here. Originally, this was going to be a comparison between all three of the Nanite Systems revolvers, but the NS-44L Blackhand is such a departure from the other two that it made more sense to just single it out. That said, we'll break down the statistics, give you plenty of comparisons where it makes sense, and hopefully help you decide whether or not this weapon will suit your individual playstyle. So the NS-44L Blackhand, in a nutshell, is a pocket battle rifle with an extremely limited magazine size, subpar hipfire, and an annoyingly long reload time. Because of that, the weapon doesn't fall into the common role of a sidearm, which is a spammable finishing weapon for when you run out of ammo in your primary. It should more be viewed as a tool suited to a specific purpose, similar to how the crossbow performs currently. The Blackhand is going to run you 1000 certs or 700 station cash to unlock. It's also available in both black and gold editions for additional station cash, and if you do buy it with station cash, then every character on your account will gain access to the weapon. The Blackhand deals 450 damage up to 5 meters and then drops off to 250 damage over 125 meters. By comparison, the NS-44 Commissioner deals 450 damage up to 8 meters, but tapers out to 225 damage over 42 meters. When you look at the damage profiles of each weapon, it's 3 chest shots to kill for the Blackhand up to 75 meters and only up to 25 meters for the Commissioner. Likewise, it's also 1 headshot and 1 chest shot to do the same thing. On top of that, 2 headshots is a kill for the Blackhand at any range, but only up to 32 meters for the Commissioner. You'll probably see where I'm going with this, but over range, the Blackhand has considerably more kill potential bullet for bullet. The downside is that the Blackhand only has a 4-round magazine, while the Commissioner has 6. Because of that, the damage per magazine for the Blackhand is 1,800 to 1,000, and for the Commissioner it's 2,700 to 1,350. Now this normally isn't a stat worth mentioning, but it should make clear the distinctions between the two revolvers. At the Blackhand's maximum 1,800 damage, you literally will not be able to kill a heavy assault with a full overshield and nanoweave armor, even if you land your entire magazine on their chest at point blank range. You would have to land headshots in order to do the trick. This is an extreme example, but it isn't the rarest thing in the world either. Then you take into consideration targets beyond 5 meters, healing, leg shots, shields, missing shots, and nanoweave in general, and you'll find that this is not a flexible weapon in any respect. As far as rate of fire goes, both the Blackhand and the Commissioner fire at 170 rounds per minute or 2.833 rounds per second, but in the Blackhand's ideal situation, you won't be spamming the trigger. So the rate of fire is a little bit less relevant a statistic anyway. It is good to know though that you do get Commissioner style damage output in close quarters just in case things do go south. The huge drawbacks to this weapon are its magazine and reload times. Now we just talked about this a little bit earlier, but the Blackhand has a 4-round magazine with 36 ammo in reserve. This is on top of a 3-second short reload and a 4-second long reload. Those two traits heavily impair the weapon's performance as anything beyond a specialty weapon. If the reload times were shorter, then having a smaller magazine wouldn't be as much of a problem, but 1 full second per round is ridiculous for a secondary weapon. This puts a very low cap on how many targets you can kill and how quickly, with very little room for error. The conclusion that you should be able to pull from this review so far is that if you're not a precise player, or if you don't at least strive to be when using weapons like this, then you'll probably find the Blackhand frustrating, lackluster, and definitely not worth the buy. Before we start talking about accuracy and recoil attributes, we're going to skip ahead to the attachment options real quick, all of which cost 100 certifications apiece, even the optics. And unfortunately, the first thing that you should do if you buy this pistol is replace the standard optics. As of making this video, the standard 4x crosshair optics, which come default with the weapon, are bugged. They're going to cloak with you, meaning that infiltrators won't have a crosshair to line up their shots with, and the weapon's recoil animations are severely jacked up as well. The default sights take much longer to center the weapon after each shot, because the recoil kicks up and then dips back down below the crosshair's origin. This is not just visual, it actually seems to impact the weapon's accuracy. When this gets fixed, I'll be sure to update the video description and add an annotation, but until then, replace the standard 4x optic with a different one, and then those issues will not exist. And for what it's worth, I prefer the green T-dot sight. It should also be noted that, unlike other pistols, the Blackhand only comes with 4x optics, and it can't raise or lower them. This has some downsides in itself. Fights with a lot of explosions happening around you will cause the weapon to be practically useless due to how heavily higher range optics are affected by screen shake. It'll also make engaging targets at closer distances more difficult to do if you aren't already used to it. The battle-hardened implant will help mitigate the shake from explosions, but is definitely not a magic fix-it button, and it isn't worth equipping for this reason alone. The Blackhand also has access to both the dark light and the laser sight just like other pistols, and I tend to default to the laser sight because it's a direct increase to the weapon's combat effectiveness, but other sidearms also rely on their hip fire a lot more as well. If you don't mind being at a pretty bad disadvantage from the hip, then the dark light is a viable option as well. As far as accuracy goes, the Blackhand has strong recoil up and to the right, but it settles fairly quickly. It has a projectile velocity of 550 meters per second, which is 100 meters per second more than the Commissioner, and it's above average by most standards. In fact, it's the same projectile speed as the NC's bolt driver and the 100 cert bolt actions for VS and TR. What's really cool though is that it has lower than normal projectile gravity as well, meaning that your bullets don't drop as quickly as they do for other weapons. The aim down sight's cone of fire for the Blackhand is 0.05 for crouching, 0.1 for crouch walking, 0.1 for standing, 0.2 for moving, and has a bloom of 0.2. The hip fire cone of fire is 2 for crouching, 2.5 for crouch walking, standing is 2, moving is 3, and the bloom is 0.4. Now what this means is that the weapon's accuracy is very good while aiming down sights. Even while moving, the accuracy is very workable, though it is certainly lacking in the hipfire department. Both the Commissioner and the crossbow have better hipfire accuracy, and the crossbow still has better stationary accuracy while aiming down sights. But the Blackhand's moving aim down sights accuracy is almost 3 times as good. When you take the projectile speed, the low bullet drop, the high damage minimum, and the exceptional cone of fire while aiming down sights, especially while crouching, you get a weapon that's basically meant to pick off targets from long range, specifically with headshots. Because of this, your playstyle needs to be more specific to the role of the weapon. Giving a Stalker Infiltrator a Blackhand, for example, is like being a semi-auto sniper with infinite cloak. And while you decide to learn the weapon, Stalker is definitely the way to go, because the punishments of missing and then having to reload are greatly diminished thanks to that infinite invisibility. Against stationary targets, you can usually drop 2 headshots on them before they even have a chance to react. That's a free kill against targets who aren't paying attention. As you get more adept at the weapon, so when you learn the projectile velocity, you learn the drop, you figure out how to identify which targets you can hit easily, you'll spend less time in the scope. Less time in the scope means less a chance of you getting reamed by somebody who is either shooting back at you or is likely to notice you shooting at them, and that makes it much more workable at roles beyond the Stalker. Light assaults sniping from high vantage points, for example, can make good use of this weapon pretty easily. Even heavy assaults can do well, thanks to their shield being there to offset the punishments. The most important factor to keep in mind when using this weapon on a non-cloaking class is your engagement range. You want to start a long ways out, to the point where enemies shouldn't notice you're shooting at them in the first place. Then, as you get more comfortable, more accurate, you can start to shorten that engagement range as much as it makes sense for your skill level. I'd venture a guess that players who can aim extremely well with the close-range bolt-action rifles will find this weapon right up their alley. Beyond that, some tips and considerations for using the Blackhand are as follows. At long range, you need to let the weapon settle. It doesn't take long, but the recoil is very heavy per shot, and the barrel will completely obscure your view for a moment. At closer ranges, the trigger becomes a little bit more spammable because the barrel kick is only visual. It doesn't actually impact your aim beyond the standard recoil and bloom. We didn't touch on this too much, but for long range shots, you want to crouch when you can. The crouching cone of fire for aiming down sights is especially small compared to your normal aim down sights accuracy, and more accuracy over longer range is always a good thing. As with all revolvers, you can't suppress this weapon, which means that enemies within 40 meters are going to see your dot pop up on their minimap. That's something to keep in mind when people might be looking for you. For targets who are further away, it doesn't really matter that you can't suppress a weapon, but if you're on top of an enemy tower, you're picking off people on the landing pads as a light assault, they're going to see your little red dot pop up every single time, so your staying power won't be that great compared to something like the crossbow, which has the same sort of role, but is silenced beyond 10 meters. It's a good idea to try to prioritize weakened targets as well. The enhanced targeting implant is probably one of the best ones to run for a weapon like this, because it's going to help you identify people who are missing health. But even paying attention to things like when people's shields flash, that means that they're damaged or they're just coming back up, or if you see people who are just getting revived or took some AoE damage from a grenade, all of those weakened targets are going to help you maximize the damage done by that 4-round magazine. When it comes down to whether or not you should pick this weapon over the Commissioner or over the crossbow, some things that you can consider are that the Commissioner is a jack of all trades. It really is. It works as a hard-hitting finishing weapon and as a medium-range supplement for short-range primaries. It's well-rounded, it's stupidly powerful, and you'll never go wrong with it. The crossbow is the only NS weapon capable of a shot-knife combo, and it has better hipfire to pull it off as well. The crossbow also has some versatility in other capacities thanks to the explosive rounds and the detection darts. But outside of its shot knife potential, the extremely low projectile velocity, the long chamber time, the less than stellar moving cone of fire, all makes it very difficult to use as an infantry killing tool outside of being a stalker infiltrator. The Blackhand is basically the bridge between these two weapons. It works very well as a stalker tool, and in my opinion will outclass the crossbow for sheer infantry killing potential, but it can also be used in more common engagements as well, but only after you get good with it. You'll eventually hit a ceiling due to the weapon's longer reload and the 4-round magazine, but there's still a lot of growing room for Blackhand users due to the weapon's precision and high damage output. If this video has been interesting, helpful, or entertaining, please feel free to like, subscribe, tell your friends about the channel, and if you've already unlocked the Blackhand, let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below. It's definitely a very interesting weapon, and in my opinion it could use a reload speed buff to make it a little bit more competitive against other sidearms, but I also don't have great aim either, so it would be really cool to see what some of the high aim players can do with it. Thanks very much folks, Wrel signing off.